Bayou 95.7, New Orleans' only classic rock. The John Osterlind Morning Show is brought to you by the most ordinary man in New Orleans, and Lamar Ford. You probably know the name Rachael Dolezal by now. And she is she's the woman, the white woman, who thinks and says she's black. And she was actually the head of an NAACP chapter in the Pacific Northwest. And she was on the news and complaining about white people or whatever the case may be. And someone said, wait a minute, you're white. And then they interviewed her parents, who were whiter than white. Lily white, almost, her parents. And they asked her, they said, is your daughter black? And no. Said, look at us. She wasn't adopted. But she always thought she was black. And then she lost her gig as the head of that local chapter of the NAACP in the Pacific Northwest when they found out that she really wasn't black, that she was white. And then she's made some news on and off since then. Every interview more bizarre than the one before it.
Well, and at one point she started calling herself, and may in fact have changed her name, I'm not sure legally, Nkechi Amare Diallo. It is kind of catchy. It flows trippingly off the tongue.
Oh, see, our stories are different. I thought she changed her name to LaQuisha. I think you're right, though. I think you got the right report. Well, she's back in the news again. Rachael Dolezal faces felony charges for welfare fraud. Wow. She's taking this black thing serious. Rachael Dolezal, the former president of the NAACP Spokane, Washington chapter, who was outed as a white woman pretending to be black, is now facing felony charges of welfare fraud, perjury, and false verification for public assistance.
I think there's a couple of traffic citations in there as well, just for good measure.
Well, the charges were made this week against her. If she's convicted of all of this, she's looking at up to 15 years in prison. And she said that ever since she went public and she went national with her story, that she's had a tough time finding jobs and paying the bills. And so now that's probably why this happened, the welfare fraud. You could kind of see how she would have a difficult time finding a job with a resume if she's sitting down in front of someone, and if she's lying about what color she is. Well, what else is she going to lie about if you hire her? I mean, you never know what story you're going to get if you're going to get the truth.
Well, and there's there's the situation with references and job references. You know, if they call up and say, I have the application here from a Nkechi Amare Diallo. It's like, I'm sorry, she never worked here.
Well,
how about Rachel? Can you put Rachel on the phone?
Washington State's Department of Social and Health Services began investigating her last year after learning that she was receiving public assistance from the department. And she had published a book. The investigation has found that Rachael Dolezal's book publisher typically offers contracts that include payments of anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000. So they were thinking, well, why is she collecting welfare? But a review of her records revealed that she'd only reported an income of $300 per month in the form of gifts from friends. So they're saying that they're accusing her of lying about how much income she has.
I think we've all been there. Show of hands.
The Spokane County, Washington Prosecutor's Office accuses Rachael Dolezal of being overpaid a total of almost $9,000 for food stamps and child care assistance from the state's Department of Social and Health Services. And this is over a 2-year span. During that period, while she was claiming the food stamps and the other welfare stuff, they investigated and they came up with that she made, well, at least about $84,000 had been deposited into her bank account in monthly installments.
What?
Exactly. And, you know, despite all of this, because some news people tracked her down the other day in the wake of this story, despite the controversy surrounding her racial fabrication, she still says, I am a black woman.
Well, if you recall, she was on with Savannah Guthrie last year on the Today Show, where she actually explained exactly what she is.
Why say that you are, in fact, a member of the African American community? I think that's the disconnect people still have.
Well, I don't identify as African American. I identify as black. So I am part of the Pan-African diaspora. And I definitely feel like in America, even though race is a social construct, and we've acknowledged this in academia and in science, there still is a line drawn in the sand. There still are sides. Politically, there's a black side and a white side, and I stand unapologetically on the black side. I stand with my own internal sense of self and my own values. I stand with my sons, I stand with my sister, and I also stand there really with the greater cause of challenging the myth of white supremacy.
How would you like to be interviewing her for a job? Rachel, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Well, I don't really identify as African American. I identify myself as black, as a member of the Pan-African diaspora. You know, at that point, I'm sorry, did I tell you there was a job opening? I'm sorry, it's just been filled.
Well,
thanks for stopping by.
Out of all the diasporas that you can identify with, Brewster, that's which diaspora she's.
The Pan-African.
Yes. Some people are saying she's doing this just to reinforce her thinking that she's black. And then she's saying that she feels oppressed. How dare you say that I'm scamming the welfare system in this country? How dare you? Haven't my people been through enough over the last 300 years, and you're doing this to me now? Have you watched any of that Netflix documentary?
No, The Racial Divide? I have not.
Yeah, well, The Racial Divide, and then the subtitle is Finding My Place in a Black and White World. I think her place is by herself in the corner. Yeah, this angered a lot of black people. This had a lot of black people upset when they see this woman. So now she could end up going to jail. But yeah, I mean, it must be tough trying to get a job. I mean, you're a white woman who's convinced you're black, and you're trying to tell that to your future maybe employer.
Here's a little snippet from the Racial Divide.
Your film, we're taking this risk. I'm putting my kids out there. I'm putting Esther out there. It's hard. And I'm trying to be the gatekeeper and then you're just like handing it over to somebody who can just like be a wrecking ball.
Well, do you think handing your child to a complete stranger is safer and better than you raising your child, a white woman who's convinced that you're black? I mean, this woman couldn't be any whiter. I heard she even likes the band Rush. So she's back in the news, and she could be... Well,
now, wait a minute. Is she in the Canadian diaspora? The Pan-Canadian diaspora now?
I don't know which diaspora Rush belongs to be honest with you.
Diaspora.
Diaspora.
Yeah. There it is. All I know is that music is incredibly white. So stay tuned, as I like to say, because now we're going to find out if this woman, Rachael Dolezal, is going to end up in prison for welfare fraud. Go figure. I mean, they could at least arrest her for perpetuating a stereotype here, can't they? My God. Here on Bayou 95.7.
Hey, it's John Osterlind. And if you like what you just heard, subscribe to this YouTube channel and listen to my radio show weekday mornings, 6 to 10 a.m. on Bayou 95.7 FM in New Orleans or Bayou957.com everywhere. Thank you.